everyone! So I did a review and shootout on Bias by Positive Grid a few weeks back, and the feedback has been great. You guys have listened closely and shared your thoughts on how it stacks up against a real amp. And I gotta say, it is a pretty impressive piece of software. Now, Positive Grid has come up with Bias effects. Well, what's that? What's the difference from Bias? At least that's what I asked myself. And after playing with the software for a few weeks, what I've learned is that it does pretty much what Bias does, but the amp tweakability has been scaled back, and instead you've got the pedal board you've always dreamed of, plus the ability to run two virtual amps at once. There's just so much here to use. Compressor, gate, wah-wah, chorus, delay, reverb, you name it. And those are just like the categories of effects. When you start getting into it, you've got several variations of each effect to choose from. Very cool. Now, for me anyway, my main effect on leads has always been delay. Bias Effects has several types of delay, including a pretty good simulation of the old school tape delay from the 70s that wound up on a lot of Judas Priest records. There's also a very cool reverse delay, and my personal go-to, a ping pong delay. I've used ping pong delays on my records for years, and this one is absolutely fantastic. What I really love is that you can just set up your delays to the tempo of whatever song you're working on, and for me, this is just a huge time saver. I used to keep delay charts handy so I could time my delays musically. This just saves that step and streamlines the entire process. Very cool. I've got to say, I love the wah effect as well, but since this is the desktop version, there's no MIDI control, and playing a wah with your mouse is kind of lame. Hopefully there's MIDI control coming in an update, as there's a lot of great features in the software that could be better utilized by a foot controller. But that brings me to the iOS version of this, which is killer. If you've got an iPhone or iPad, you can run Bias Effects on it with MIDI control. You've basically got a portable dream rig that fits into your pocket. I think that's killer, and if you're on a budget, plugging your iPad into a PA system seems like a great way to make your life simpler. How does it sound? Well, I've brought in my good friend Chris Rafinski to give me a hand, so let's check out a few clean tones. Like the previous versions, there's a vast selection of tones available on the cloud, so we started with the best. We started with one of Tosin Abasi's setups. Check it out. And here's something we cooked up with the reverse delay. It's pretty cool for a special effect. Now, Chris was so impressed with the clean tones, he remarked that he'd love to put this on an iPad and take it to his jazz gigs. I've got to say the convenience factor of this is starting to look pretty alluring. Anyway, here's how it sounds on a lead line with a little ping pong delay and a little bit of chorus. But the big question is, how does it sound in a mix? Well, you guys have been listening to this the whole time. I've taken a song I recorded with Final Stage way back in 2010 and run the direct tracks through Bias Effects using the Plexi amp and the Greenback cap. But for me, the real star of this preset is the Overdriver, which is probably the best software emulation of an overdrive pedal that I have ever heard. Check out the huge difference it makes in the tone. And here's the full mix of that at regular volume. I gotta say, for an amp sim, that is damn impressive. I'm gonna make this preset and all my other ones that we've cooked up for this video and the last one available on the cloud with the prefix SMG. Now, one last thing. Bias Effects integrates with your Bias amp, so any of your presets that you've made can be called up. That includes any tone matching you've done, which is awesome. Here's a clip of my Rev Generator 120 setup that I created with Bias Amp for the demo I did a few weeks back, and I've loaded that here into Bias Effects. And like I said, this one's going to be available on the cloud. So if you're a guitar player who doesn't have a huge budget, or you're living in an apartment, or you just plain can't crank up an amp because of noise issues, this is definitely for you. Believe me, I've been through it in my college days about a million years ago, because at no time was I allowed to crank up my amp. I would have loved to have something like this available. I mean, you can just throw on a set of headphones and just rock the world. But it's not just for that. The effects are killer, and I can see myself reaching for this on my day-to-day mixing duties, as they're just so easy to use. That killer interface on Bias Amp, it's here in Bias Effects as well. The chorus, delay, flange, phase, all that stuff I can use on even my most important projects with total confidence. I think Positive Grid has a real winner here with Bias Effects. Check out the demo at positivegrid.com and tell them Glenn Fricker sent you.